All right, so my name is Dan Reed, and I'd like to start off by asking who here likes ice cream? Cool. I love ice cream. I love to eat it. I love to drink it when it melts. And more importantly, I'm interested in how ice cream can be a tool for creating better communities. I'm an urban planner by training, and one of the sort of leading things that motivates me is this idea of Kid Urbanism, which is the idea that can we build communities around the needs and abilities of a young person? I grew up here in downtown Silver Spring, and I was very used to walking around a lot, but when I got older and we moved to a more suburban location, I couldn't. And my brother, who currently lives there now, cannot, and is just sort of biding his time until he gets a car. And so for me, Kid Urbanism means three things. One, space for expression, where young people have places where they can go and be themselves and hang out and figure out society. Two is a robust public realm where they can participate in society. And three, and most importantly, is alternatives to driving, so that before you're 16 and you get your driver's license, you can get around and your parents don't have to serve as your chauffeur. You can get around by walking, by biking, and by transit. But when I had to do a project for my GIS class in graduate school, I was particularly interested in the walking part, which is to say, how can you measure walkability for a young person? You know, because when I was 8 or 10, I didn't really have the same mobility or comfort with walking longer distances that I have today. So in the New Urbanism, which is a sort of community planning movement that advocates a return to traditional walkable communities, there's a sort of rule of thumb called the popsicle test, or as I like to call it, the ice cream test, which is basically the ability of an 8-year-old to safely get somewhere to buy an ice cream, then get home before it melts. So for these purposes, we're assuming about a half-mile walk, which is about 10 or 15 minutes, depending on how long your legs are. So I decided to test that here in Montgomery County. This is a map. Montgomery County, as we all know, has 1 million residents, over 495 square miles, and has about 66 ice cream shops according to Yelp. I defined ice cream shops as any store that exclusively sells ice cream, gelato, frozen yogurt, or frozen custard. I found the locations on here, mapped them on here by their address and their coordinates. And my first thought was, well, if I want to figure out how much area is within a half-mile of each ice cream shop, why don't I just draw a half-mile circle around that? So that's the first thing I did. I drew a half-mile circle around each one, and then I measured, and I found out that it covered about 10% of the county is within a half-mile circle of an ice cream store. And I was trying to test out how the walkability differs in different parts of the county, and urban areas like Silver Spring, rural areas like Damascus, suburban areas like Gaithersburg, and the New Urbanist sort of model community of Kentlands, which is also in Gaithersburg. These are pictures of what those places look like. Traditionally, rural and suburban communities are not known for walkability, and so I assumed they would have a low rating in the ice cream test, and urban and new urbanist communities are predicated on walking, so I assumed they would have much higher ratings in the ice cream test. So I picked ice cream shops in each one. Here they are on a map, and you can see there's the half-mile circle. As I assumed, you know, these areas are less walkable because there aren't as many streets. You know, there aren't as many places for you to walk. But the way that the circle is drawn assumes that every space within the circle is equally accessible, which if there's like that, it's not true because you physically can't get there. So then I used another tool called Network Analyst, which basically takes a street grid, plugs in all the possible paths you can take, and then I drew a little shape around that, divided it by the original circle to figure out, okay, how much of that is covered. So now we know about 5% of the county is actually a half-mile walk from an ice cream store. And you can see what this is, the pink area here, looks like. This is the land from which you can actually walk to an ice cream store. And I divided this pink shape by the blue shape to get a percentage. And the higher the percentage meant the more walkable or the more accessible it was. The different colors here, the darker the color, is the more area within the circle you can walk to. Not surprisingly, down here, like in Bethesda, Silver Spring, and Wheaton, more area you can walk to. The further out you go, less area you can walk to. That polygon kind of screwed up. I threw that one out. So the next slide is the percentage of the blue circle that is covered by the pink shape. And this is where things got kind of weird, because as you can see in my sort of suburban location, which I assume would be the least walkable, is actually the most walkable on this. And I was kind of like, maybe this isn't the only metric or the best metric I can use to determine how walkable my circles are. And there was some that actually made total sense. If there was some sort of barrier, like a freeway or train tracks, then the walkability was limited because you would walk and you'd hit a barrier and much less of the blue area was covered by the pink circle. But I was still curious how to figure out what actually makes it walkable. So I decided to figure out what is the density of children in each of my half-mile circles. The semester kind of came to an end before I go further on this, but this is a map of where the children are most dense in Montgomery County. And as you can see, mostly down here in the urban areas, out there too. The next slide is going to show that laid on top of each of our ice cream shops, and surprisingly, Murenko's here in downtown Silver Spring has the highest density of children of any ice cream shop in the county, which means not only is it easy to walk there, but there are actually children to walk there. Whereas in Kentlands, there are a third as many density of children per square mile. So there are many fewer kids who can actually walk to these ice cream stores. There are some caveats. So my polygon's screwed up. This doesn't really measure the quality of a street, so it might actually not be a place you want your little kid to walk on. I didn't think about other issues like melting time, like can you make it a half mile before the ice cream melts depending on the weather, and ice cream trucks are kind of roving ice cream shops that can be walkable or not walkable depending where they are. But so that's for another day. Anyway, thank you very much, and I hope you have a good night.